Good morning. Welcome to Heartset Mindset Reset. My name is Jacqueline Way, and I am one of the hosts here at the show today. And I am so excited to welcome everybody who's coming in. I know we've got people here from YouTube and Facebook. We also have people right here in the live stream on Humanity Stream. So thank you so much for coming. Listen, this is just my favorite next few weeks. It's February. It would be the month of love, and we can't wait to share with you all of the guests that we have with us that are really going to take us on this beautiful journey of not only talking about love, but discovering what love is for each of us. Now, I'm not going to give it all away, so I'm just going to get us started, and then I'm going to introduce my co-host, Dr. Roshanak Hashimoon, and she will introduce our guests today, who we're so excited to have here. So Mindset Heartset Reset is a dynamic live weekly show. We like to provoke introspection, cultivate compassion, and spark positive change in ourselves, which spreads out to the world. Through our insightful discussions with our guests, practical tools, and really authentic stories from everyone, it nurtures and empowers our own mindsets. It opens our hearts, and it allows us to make connections both right here with everybody live and out in our world. This allows us and gives us the courage to hit the reset button in our own lives. And our mission is so simple. It's to expand love at a global scale with a vision to shift humanity's future, one which we can all thrive in, create a little more peace, a little more bliss in our world. So without further ado, I'm going to get on with it. We're going to start with introducing my co-host, Dr. Roshanak Hashimoon, my soul sister. Dr. Roshanak is a credentialed computational, clinical, and behavioral neuroscientist whose work supports the transformation of countless lives all around the world. As the founder of Access to the Path, she combines the power and process of science with emotional and spiritual intelligence to generate compelling and innovative strategies in your own life that will help people, businesses become more purposeful, effective, and prosperous. Dr. Roshanak, welcome to the stage. My sister, I'm so happy to be here with you for this month and the coming weeks. And please introduce our guest today and our show today. We can't hear you. Wait, mute.
I'm sitting there saying, I am ready to rock and roll, everybody.
We can see that. We felt the energy and the frequency coming off your body. So
right?
It's good. Like, but I didn't want anybody to miss even a word. So
I was so excited. I didn't even see the muted microphone. Thank you so much, Jacqueline. See, what would I do without her? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mindset Heartset Reset. I am so excited to welcome you with Jacqueline Way, my co-host, to our amazing program and our fantastic episode today as part of the series, Understanding Love. You're in for it today. It's a really great show, but they're always great shows. So, I hope that you join us, not just this week, but go back and watch the other recordings you may have missed and join us in the future, because we have the best guests, and today is no exception. We've got Francesca Hogi with us. We'll get to that in just a second. Today, the title of our episode is The Essence of Love, Embracing Your Birthright. Get ready. Today, we are asking, what is love? I mean, what is love truly? We always talk about love in terms of our fleeting emotions, our chasing around after that rush that we get when we feel in love, and we think love is, this romantic thing. But especially now around Valentine's Day, this buzzword, love, is really not doing any justice to the truth and the power of what love brings to our lives, of what love truly means for us, all of us, individually and collectively, when we're talking about having this amazing life and creating this beautiful world. This is the true definition of love that we're going to start exploring again further today. We started last week with Dr. James Doty, and we talked about manifesting love. And we asked at the end of the program, what did he think love was? So we're going to ask Franny today too. And one of the things that I think is so important that Jacqueline and I have discussed, and with Franny, is going beyond the tropes of romantic relationship love, of which Franny is an expert, and going deep into the truth of where love begins, the power that love has, and the emotional safety that we get that allows us to remove resistance from our lives. And that resistance comes just as much from within, if not more, than from without. So get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready for this exciting show. Without further ado, please allow me to introduce you our wonderful guest, Francesca Hogi. Francesca is extraordinary. I'm going to read a quick bio for Franny. So welcome, Franny. Give me 1 second. I want to tell everybody how amazing you are, for those who don't already know. Francesca Hogi helps people find true love inside and out. A former corporate lawyer turned matchmaker and coach, Francesca is a TED speaker. She was amazing. If you didn't catch her TED Talk, oh my gosh, don't miss it. Podcast host and internationally recognized expert on dating and relationships. She's been featured in media outlets such as The Today Show, Marie Claire, The New York Times, Harper's Bazaar, and The Huffington Post. She coaches individuals and groups and is the founder of the True Love Society, a community for women seeking deeper self and romantic love. Prior to her love career, Francesca competed on 2 seasons of the iconic reality show Survivor. Very interesting, our guest. She currently lives in Los Angeles with her boyfriend and their dog, Toast. Welcome, Franny. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Roshanak. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for this conversation today.
We are so happy to have you join us. Thank you for accepting our invitation to come and join us. So let's get started. As I mentioned on our last show, we asked, what is love? And so following through from that, let's go beyond the surface. Well, let's just go to your definition of what is love. What is true love? What is love truly?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. These are really great questions. Well,
We're starting off easy.
I know we're starting off easy. Okay,
Yes,
I'm going to start with true love because I do have a very clear definition of true love, and I define it in a really specific way. And so I think, I'm a love coach. I help people with romantic love and also self-love. It's really all about self-love, honestly, guys. That's but also with dating and relationships. However, this term true love is something that, here, it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. We're inundated with all of these messages, of these very commercialized messages of true love and your one true love. And this is a very typical message that we get. But I really focus on true love as being about a relationship more than one perfect person, right? So this idea that there's this one perfect person out there who completes you and that's your true love, and when you meet them, you'll live happily ever after. That is really, that is not how love really works, right? It's not just about a perfect person. The love is the perfection, right? And so when I talk about true love, I'm specifically defining it as a relationship that has a foundation of particular values. And those values are respect, intimacy, safety, adoration, commitment, and joy. So if you have that as the foundation of your relationship, that is my definition of healthy love. That's a relationship in which you are able to really show up as your authentic self. You're able to, let the love in because you know that you're worthy of it. It's really, it's a beautiful thing. So that's my definition of true love. So love, what is love? So love is so many things. And Dr. Roshanak, as you mentioned in your intro, we tend to very much focus on love as an emotion, and just as an emotion, just as a feeling, right? That feeling of being in love, that feeling when you love someone so much, or you love an experience so much, or you love your dog so much, like I love mine. And we're very focused on the emotion of love. And the emotion of love is obviously, it is beautiful. It is nourishing. It is heart filling. We all know that feeling, right? However, that's only one aspect of love. And if we stop there, if we stop at the emotion of love, then we're not taking responsibility for our part in really actively practicing love in our lives and in this world, right? So, we can look at the world today and we see how much strife, how much polarization, how much violence, all of these terrible things, obviously, that we all know are going on in the world. And if everyone's just waiting to suddenly, quote, feel in love with their with their adversary, or the person they see as their adversary, or we're waiting for someone to feel in love with the one who's on the other side of this war that you're fighting, then we're going to be waiting a long time, because we're not acting with love, right? We're not harnessing the energy and the power of love, and we're not treating love as the verb that it is, right? So as powerful as it is to feel those feelings of love, it is even more powerful, I would say, to treat someone with love, including yourself, when you're not feeling it, right? To make that choice to be loved. So to me, that's what embodying love is. And I don't know if that really answers this existential, eternal question of what love is. But I do truly believe that love is something that, we're all born from love. We are all we're all love geniuses, because love is something that is so fundamental to who we are, that we know it when we feel it, but we don't always know how to behave with love, right? We don't know how to center love in our lives and in our actions, and that's why conversations like this are really important. And that's why, the work that we all do is really important, because we're helping people to understand how to make love tangible and real, and something that we're living every day, and not just this aspirational thing of, oh, isn't it nice to feel that way sometimes?
I love that. Thank you so much. Yes, that does answer quite a lot. And I think it's really powerful what you said, because love, of course, is an emotion. There's so many changes that occur in the brain when we fall in love, and, that promotes that romantic love that we crave, because it lights us up. It's, love is akin, that romantic love when we're first falling in love really is akin to insanity in the brain. And there are these neurotransmitters and hormones and everything that are released that really have us pulled deeper into that feeling. And it's necessary for us. And that's fine. It's a system that's well set up. But there are so many different aspects of love. And if we're chasing just that rush, that high, that feeling of insanity, that feeling that can be addictive, some people just want to be in love. So they go from person to person to person to get that initial hit. That's an addiction. And love in its truth is not an addiction, of course, because addictions are not good for us by definition. So I love that you brought in that love is beyond just the sentimentality, beyond the rush. It is so much greater, and in its pure form, so much more powerful and sustainable than that acute, transient time, that epoch when we feel something. Because true love, that love that we can connect to within us, is a state of being. Is that what you're saying, Franny?
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, I really, I love everything that you just said. And I think that it's when you understand the true power of love, and you really think about it, if you really think about the fact that our hearts are beating, we're not doing that. The fact that there's so much beauty in the world and in every human, like, we didn't do that. No one, when we were little, no one said, here's a glass of love and drink it up, and now you know what love is, right? Like, it's something, it's so elemental, it's so essential to just existence, right? There, like, something loves us that our hearts are beating.
That's so beautiful.
I mean, we're
Everybody
not
whose heart is beating out there, that means all of you. Look how lucky you are.
Right. And so like, we're here. So we are loved, right? Just by our existence is the evidence that we are loved. And I know it is hard, because life is hard, right? And so many people live life so disconnected from love and understanding what love is, that then we feel like we feel disconnected from love, and we feel like love is this thing that's outside of us, and we think that love is this elusive thing. But if we're able to actually recognize, well, hold on a second, there's all these levels of love. Like you said, love is a state of being. What does it mean to be in a loving state of being? What does it mean to embody love as you live your life every day? And it doesn't mean you have to run around saying to everyone, I love you, I love you, I love you. You know, you talk about insanity. I don't think
Unless you're Jacqueline.
Yeah, I do.
It's true. She's walking around. I love you.
You are one of the few enlightened ones who would love that. Most people would be like, you need to get away from me right now, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's what I.
that's
What? Yeah. Yeah. I just scare everybody.
right. I mean, look, because it can actually feel scary. That's the thing,
It
right?
does,
It
right?
feels
And
scary,
that's
right?
the big one. Yeah. Love
That's
can
it
feel
feels
really scary, especially the industry you're in when it is a romantic love. You know, we can't bypass or get rid of that romantic love isn't there. But isn't that always such a big thing between people, right? Where it's like you say I love you. I can freely say I love you to either of you without even blinking. But you know, you put some handsome, stellar man in front of me and I might start to like choke up and all of a sudden something changes and for some reason it means something different, right?
Yes,
But
yes. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
we got to talk about some of that.
We
We got a lot to talk about.
There's so
Well,
much
let's
to say,
finish this
so much
thought.
to
Let's
say.
finish this thought. Let's start from that
Okay,
inside
sorry.
out one.
I'm
And then we'll
sidetracking
move
everybody
over.
already.
No, well, no, I think this is really important. Okay, there's two things I don't want to forget. So I want to talk about like basically this spectrum of love to fear, right? Because the opposite of love is not hate, the opposite of love is fear, right? And so if you think about this spectrum and, you know, dating, romantic relationships, this is an area where we are ostensibly leading with love and we are seeking love and we're looking to build these loving partnerships. However, how much fear are we actually leading with in our romantic relationships, right? How much fear is actually at the center of dating, right?
Right.
There can be so much fear that you're not even going to try to date at all because like whoa, that's way too scary, that's way too emotionally risky, right? Or there's the fear of actually being with somebody who truly sees you, right? And who's truly capable of unconditionally loving you. And there's that fear. And so a lot of us, you know, we can self-sabotage. No, I actually don't like the term self-sabotage because for other reasons, but push, you know, we can push away, right? Because it just doesn't feel comfortable.
That's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show. Well, the reason I don't like the term self-sabotage is because I don't believe that there is any level in which we are trying to harm ourselves.
Right.
I believe that there is a level in which we are trying to keep ourselves safe from something else. And often the confusion that we have internally is like, I'm going to do this thing to keep me safe. That actually keeps me disconnected from love, right?
Or worse.
That actually keeps me, or worse, right? That actually keeps me stuck. That actually harms me, right? So it's like a miscommunication, but it's not like any part of you is like, haha, I'm gonna get you, right? It's not. So that's why I don't really like it as self-sabotage. It's just I think it's like the wires got crossed and you got a message that this is what you need to do to be safe, and you might be wrong, right, about that message. But in dating, you know, one thing that I'm always preaching the gospel of, especially lately, especially nowadays, is really the importance of centering love in your life in a holistic way. So we have this way of putting romantic love up on a pedestal, right? And that might seem like, oh, well, we're elevating it, we're honoring it, but no, we're actually not. Because when we put romantic love up on a pedestal, now you're saying, I'm not responsible for this. I'm not an active participant in this, right? This is something that's outside of me. This is something that's supposed to fix me, cure me, heal me, and I don't have to do anything else, right? I get to put it all on, you know, no one can live on a pedestal. Love can't live on a pedestal. Love is not meant to live on a pedestal. So by taking romantic love off of a pedestal, and if you start to think of how can I center love in my life in a holistic way? So that starts with, how loving am I in my relationship with myself? Really easy way to determine this is to pay attention to your self-talk, right? So how kind are you to yourself? How compassionate are you to yourself? How able are you to validate yourself, give yourself credit for not just for, you know, achievement, yes, for achievement, but even for just attempt, for trying, right? For showing up.
Yeah.
And like all of these, I say they're little, but these are the ways in which we can start to embody love just by starting to practice that more loving relationship with ourselves. So once you start doing that, then starting to see the opportunities to just like for instance, self-worth is a big topic, right? And I believe that we have a self-worth crisis in our culture for many reasons, but we have been getting lots of messages our whole lives from people who some from people who love us, some from people who don't, that we need to do all of these things, or all these like milestones and hoops that we have to jump through in order to be good enough, right? You get the good grade and now you're good enough, right? You get the relationship and now you're good enough. You look a certain way, you have a certain amount of, fill in the blank, right? Millions of ways. You take care of other people, you put everyone before you, now you're good enough, right? You're self-sacrificing. So all of these messages are all, they're all wrong, because what I believe is that you were born worthy, unconditionally, just as you are. Like, that's just the deal. That's the deal when we come into this world, that there's no one who's like, we got to wait and see if this one deserves love, right? We got to wait and see if this one deserves safety or kindness or compassion. So if you can accept that every newborn baby is born into this world deserving of those good things, then you can also start to see how that also applies to you, because it applies to everyone. So if you are inherently worthy, if we can take the question of, am I good enough? Do I deserve love off the table? Because I like to just take it off the table. It's like, yeah, you may not feel that way. That's okay. Your feelings are not facts, right? And so we can still choose to take, and this is about going back to like embodying love and not relying on love just as a feeling. Like, I can feel unworthy of something and still choose to allow it into my life. I can feel like, well, why does this person love me so much? Why do they think I'm so great? What's going to happen when they find out that I'm not, this perfect person that they think I am? Well, guess what? You deserve that. You deserve to go through that process. You still deserve to have that conversation with yourself where you're like, okay, this feels really scary to let love in, right? To let myself to be seen and warts and all. But if I truly believe that I was worthy of having love, I would do it anyway, wouldn't I? Or maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't shut down. Maybe I would take a breath and I would recognize that this is about me having a greater skill, a greater capacity to receive love. It's not that I can't handle love at all. It's just that right now I need to work on expanding my capacity to receive love. So if you can have those kinds of conversations with yourself, that to me is embodied self-love. And then you can start to understand how, well, just as maybe this person who I thought, we are politically on opposite sides, and therefore I hate them and they hate me. Maybe I can understand, I can disagree with them. I can think that they are really, really wrong, but still see their humanity and still see that they actually still deserve love, and they deserve safety, and they deserve kindness, and they deserve the same things that everyone deserves, because that's the gift of love that we're all given when we are born onto this planet. So I could go on and on because I have a lot to say.
Excuse me.
No, we're just going to let you go, because then we don't have to ask any questions. And you're just, I love that we're just going to get it all. We'll take it, Francesca.
I would love
You can
Can I
go.
just make one observation here?
Yes.
Because I think it's so important with what's going on in the world today and how we can become so quickly emotionally dysregulated, that this love that you're talking about that connects to the depth of our being, that for those who believe in a higher power and a divine, that connects to the God of your understanding, that love that is something that we're born with. We see babies don't hate. Well, I've never seen a baby hate. Has anybody seen a baby hate? I haven't. Even in the case of pathologies, you don't see a baby hate. And so if we one of the benefits of connecting to this incredible, extraordinary power that is the truth of our being is that it helps us to stay regulated, to manage our emotions when we encounter someone that, let's say lightly presses our buttons or, drives us up the wall or really says things that are unacceptable. Then we can not say that that's okay, but not be so thrown off by it as to switch into something that would move us into aggression, because so as a behavioral neuroscientist, I would tell you that all behavior starts in the brain. Don't believe me? Take out your brain and let's see what you can do. Nothing, right? So how we feel and what we think leads to our actions. And when we're connected to something that is so stabilizing as love, then we can have our emotions, but not have them drive our behavior. And so love is the driver because at the very least, it's the stabilizer. It is the more, for those of you who are physics buffs like me, it is the greater force, right? So it's the one that supersedes the others. And I think at a time like this, when there's so much division, dysregulation, miseducation, etc., and so many feelings flying around all over the place, that never has it been more important for us to anchor in love than now.
I agree. I think it's really, I actually think that those of us who care about the world being a more just place, a more loving place, a more nourishing place, we actually have a responsibility, in my opinion. We have a responsibility to really we have to get our individual act together on this love front and really embracing this, this deeper power of love, because if we don't do it, then who will? Like, that's our job. I feel like, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? Like, we actually know how much we've been given. Not everybody knows that they've been given anything. They think they've been given nothing, right? And so we can't judge them, right? But we know that, but we're like, but we know that you've been given something, right? So if we're not spreading that message to the world, like Jacqueline, if you're not going around telling people that you love them, like, they may not know that they're loved.
Right? Somebody's got to do it. That's what I say. Somebody's got to do it. I think this leads really beautifully to one of my next questions for you. And, we're talking about this it's a $1 billion industry, love, now. Right? Multi-billion, and about worth and about self-love. I have a bit of a thing myself, the whole standing in front of the mirror trying to convince myself I'm beautiful on a fat day never quite works for me. Right. And trying to convince myself, as I sit and do my repetitive mantras, I've realized for myself that hasn't worked so well, because it still doesn't, it's like I'm standing there trying to convince myself of something in a way. And I know you've talked a lot about this as well. And, I'd like to talk about how we begin to transition from that external validation that is required. Dr. Rochanek, literally, as it was, of course, the words were coming out of your mouth, that love is addictive. We're addicted to love. There's songs written about that. Right. And listen, I'm the first to say, I can look back in my life, in my younger years and different times in my life where I was a complete addict to love. I was that person who would go looking for it. I've examined my childhood. I know why I did that, why we're going and seeking that sense of love that maybe we didn't get from our homes when we were younger. That's a lot about the self-examination that we need to go through, potential trauma in our past, all of those components to this. But how do now we've talked about the fact that love is actually who we are. It's part of our human nature, both in physical form, as Dr. Roshanak has shared with us, but as you have told us so beautifully, we were born from it, right? It's part of who we innately are from the moment we take our first breath and every breath that follows, that we are love. So how do we begin to, and we've talked about love being a verb already, which you explained beautifully. How do we begin to look at how we flow love differently from us? So a lot of times I think we think the love comes this way into us, and that's how it flows. And then it's like, we can flow it back out, right? But we wait for this love to come from the outside world. How do we begin to transition that for ourselves? How do we begin to flow it from the inside out?
Yes. I love it, Jacqueline. Such a great question.
Other than my way of telling everybody I love them, right? Yeah.
Well, and first of all, and I agree with you. Like I used to try to do that thing too of convincing myself to love myself, right? Because I think this is part of the problem with this whole idea of self-love is like, what does that even mean? Does it mean I think I look good in these jeans? Does it mean I think I'm, the best? Does it mean, it's like, it can.
I'm really smart when you feel dumb, right?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of like.
Talking about this before the show started, and we're both writing a book right now. Well, I've been telling myself for the past, 50 years that I'm not a writer, right? And I can't look in the mirror and go, I'm a writer, I'm a writer, I'm a writer. But it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So how do we begin that flow?
Yes. Well, I mean, so first of all, I would say, number one is always to, when there's a disconnect between how you see yourself and how you want to see yourself, to start to challenge, right? So even like, I'm not a writer. What does it mean to be a writer? Right? Well, if a writer is someone who writes and I write, then I guess I can just call myself a writer. Who can stop me? Right? And I can
who gives you that label, right? Do I get the PhD in that one? Right?
Yeah, like you can just give yourself a break. This is what I mean when I say it's like our feelings aren't facts. It's like, yeah, you can feel like, who am I to do this? Or who am I? Like, you can feel that way, but like, who are you not? Like, what, are you willing to consider the possibility that you actually are a writer? Like, are you willing to consider the possibility that you are beautiful, even though you don't feel so beautiful today, right? Because, these are all stories. Everything is a story, right? Yeah. What beauty is a story. I mean, one of the most liberating things I ever did for myself was to recognize that, first of all, no matter how you could think of the person who you would say is the most beautiful. Oh my God, this person, so beautiful. And is everybody going to agree with you? Is everybody going to agree with you?
Angelina Jolie, we might all agree. Yeah.
No, we do not all agree.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
You need to go on the internet. No one agrees. It is literally the most subjective thing, okay? It is literally the most subjective thing. And so when you recognize that, and then it's like, well, then there's also people who you just find so beautiful, not because they're physically, they, look any way that you would, look in a magazine, but just because that's who they are, their spirit, you love them, right? And so it's like, okay, wait, there's more to this beauty thing. So the gift that I gave to myself was to recognize, since beauty is completely subjective, I can just decide that I'm beautiful. And literally no one can tell me that I'm wrong. I mean, they can, but who cares? That's just their opinion. Right. Anyway, but what I really want to talk about, and it's almost like
I like everybody to really hear this one, because I think it is such a big challenge across the board for everybody, in society, and part of that challenge of dysregulation as well. Because when we don't value ourselves, how do we bring that light, our own beautiful light that we carry, to the world?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that from a truth perspective? What's true and what's not true, right? And how do we continue? Like, what is the truth? And question that for ourselves, because they said on Instagram it was true, right? My kids do this all the time with YouTube videos. Well, Mom, they said it was true on this YouTube video, and I'm like, Jesus, please, and all of a sudden. So I think I'd love to just go back to that. Like, what is truth? Like, how do we believe this for ourselves? Because these are really beliefs. And Dr. Roshanak has talked about this often, the programming that goes on, right? And what's true and what's not. Can you just touch on that a little bit for us? Because it's so tied into love, I think.
It is 100% tied in. No, this is really important. So, okay, so love and the way, and I'm gonna walk you through this really quick. I have these 5 steps because I really struggled with this whole self-love program. So when it comes to, or process of like, like I said, what does it even mean? So truth is something that will always be flexible and floatable if you don't have a strong foundation to ground yourself in, right? And so I really, when I talk about helping people to find true love inside and out, we're always starting with the inside. So I have broken self-love down into these 5 steps because they're very actionable. And that's what I teach my clients. And this is what I practice myself. And this has changed my life and a lot of other people's as well. And hopefully it will for those of you who are listening. Okay. So number 1 is self-compassion, because as we all know, being human is hard, right? Life has its challenges and its uncertainty, and it is understandably a difficult thing to be human a lot of the time, right? And so, and we didn't choose our challenges. We didn't choose our brain chemistry. We didn't choose any of these things that we now are navigating. And so that's why we deserve to just be compassionate towards ourselves. Like, just as any baby, and I love to always bring it back to babies because, when it comes to adults, then we're like, well, they did this and they did that. And, a lot of story comes in. Does a newborn baby deserve compassion? Does a child who is learning for the first time to take their first step and they fall down, do they deserve, and they're crying, do they deserve compassion, or do they deserve, and even if it's their 100th step, even if they're 20 years old and they've been walking since they were 1, right? Like, do they deserve compassion, or do they deserve, you suck, right? Can't believe you did that. And if you can accept that they deserve compassion, then you can, again, going back to love is a verb. This is a choice to practice. You can choose in any moment where you're beating yourself up, shaming yourself, judging yourself, criticizing yourself, telling yourself that you're not good enough. The gift that you can give to yourself in that moment is to, number 1, take a breath and just choose, like, for this moment, I'm going to just give myself a break. I'm just going to take it easy. I beat myself up enough. I'm just going to give myself a break so I can move on, so I can have a moment of peace. Literally, even if you're just giving yourself a moment of peace and you're making that decision, that will expand. And that's an act of love towards yourself. So that's the number 1, is self-compassion. So just a question is, anything that you're struggling with is to check in and say, am I willing to give myself a break from beating myself up? I have a client who puts, this is the way she visualized it when I explained this to her. It's like, if you ever see somebody just like, someone's just yelling at them, they're just yelling at them, and you're like, give them a break, give them a break. Like, that's what she says to herself now. When she's beating herself up, she's like, give her a break. So anyway, that's self-compassion. Number 2, I'll go quickly, is self-worth. And self-worth, we already talked about that, right? Like, you were born worthy. So even though you don't always feel that way. So if you can just accept the fact that even though I don't feel worthy, I am willing to believe and to accept that everyone is born inherently worthy of love, kindness, joy, safety, respect, etc. All those foundational, really good things, right? That you would want for any newborn baby in this world who you loved. Then you can ask yourself, well, if I truly believe that I was worthy, what might I do next? What might I do right now? And maybe the answer is I would literally, like, actually take a break and go take a 10-minute walk so I can breathe and gather my thoughts and then go back into the situation that I'm in. Maybe that's what you would do. Maybe there is a boundary that you'd put in place with someone, or a boundary that you would actually enforce that you put in place. Maybe you would, have a conversation that you've been avoiding. Lots of things. Maybe you'd start dating, even though that feels really scary. If you truly believe that you were worthy of having the love that you wanted, then what step might you take in that direction? It's not about a perfect answer, but it is about starting to train yourself to know that I don't have to just rely on my feelings. I can do things that are in my highest good as a conscious choice. And then the third thing, validation, Jacqueline, you were talking about that, like this external validation that we tend to be very dependent on because that's how we are raised in our culture. This is part of the big problem is that we are so dependent on external validation. And if somebody is not constantly giving it to us, then we're feeling less than. So self-validation is step 3, because self-validation is starting to practice that, giving yourself credit, bigging yourself up, being your own cheerleader. It's like really not, like I said before, it's not just about the outcome. It's about like, wow, I did something that was scary. Like I went on a date for the first time in 10 years, or I actually, made eye contact with somebody and smiled at them. And that feels terrifying, but I did it anyway, right? So just giving yourself that credit, because that's how you build confidence. And then it gets easier and easier. And then you are less dependent on outside validation, the more practice you are giving it to yourself. But also when you do receive outside validation, you can actually receive it and not feel like, oh, they're lying, or they're just saying that to be nice, or, oh, I don't look good in this. I look terrible. I look terrible today. Oh, no, because that's what we do when we can't receive. We just push. We're like, no, 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 no. I won't even take a compliment, right? I won't even accept that you truly think that I look good today. Like if that's a level, that's a check-in to do with yourself with a lot of self-compassion, right? Can I accept a compliment and believe it, right? Because if not, that's okay. But you also know that this is something that you can practice. You can start to strengthen this ability, but it starts by practicing it within yourself. So that's self-validation. The next is self-care. You want to talk about big industries, multi-billion-dollar industry, lots of different things that are marketed to us as self-care. But I really like to think of it as a 2-part question. Number 1, how do I want to feel? Number 2, what action or actions can I take to support myself in feeling that way? And so it's an inquiry. It's different for everyone. Sometimes it's taking things away. Sometimes it's, it's stopping doing things that aren't serving you and aren't supporting you and feeling how you want to feel. A really basic example of this, a big thing I did for myself, because I realized that I had a very unhealthy relationship with my phone. I know many of you can relate. And it was really starting to, I starting to suspect, because I think, a lot of times we really do have this intuition, like, I don't think this is really working for me anymore. I don't think this is so good for me. So I instituted this like no phone in my bedroom rule. And that was life-changing, okay? That is the greatest act of self-care ever. It's to decide that I'm not going to have my phone in my bedroom. So now I'm not going to be last thing looking at the phone, first thing looking at the phone, always plugged in. Like that is a gift that I've given to myself. So that's me. But for you, how do I want to feel? How do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel on your love journey? How do you want to feel in dating? How do you want to feel in any circumstance? That's the first question. And then the second question is, what are the things that you can do or not do that are going to support you in feeling that way? Again, to me, this is an act of self-love. This is embodied self-love. And then last but not least is self-gratitude. Number 5 is self-gratitude. And that's when you are really practicing. And we haven't talked about gratitude yet, but gratitude is so powerful for so many reasons. But I really think of it like on a spiritual, energetic level. Is gratitude is so energetically similar to love. It is like, it's on that spectrum, that love to fear spectrum I was talking about earlier. Gratitude it is all the way up here. Gratitude and love, they are like holding hands. And so we can practice gratitude as a way, as an entryway to start to experience more feelings of love, right? So remember, this is not about the feeling. This is all about action. So practicing that gratitude for yourself, not just for the things that you have, but for who you are, all the things that make you, you. There's no one else in the world exactly like you. There never has been, there never will be. And that's amazing. That's amazing. And that's worth celebrating. So that's what I use as a foundation so that when life is coming at me, I'm like, does this resonate with the truth of who I am? Does this resonate with my belief in my inherent worthiness? Because if it doesn't have space in my life anymore. Well, for the most part, nothing is perfect. No one is perfect. I'm certainly not saying I got it all figured out. Let me be clear.
What? You don't have it all figured out? What?
But I have made tremendous progress
Gains.
on this self-love journey. Yeah.
Oh, I love that you've shared this with us, because not only do I happen to know this about you, but I love that you've now given us a practice in those steps. Not only have you given us one pack practice, but you've given us 5 practices that we can start implementing every day. And, this is where you and I come into the world in the same way. It was, I have a charitable organization called 365 Give. And I did this practice of giving back with my son when he was 3. And I did it for him. And I did this practice because I was going to grow this kind, compassionate, loving little human being. But when I was done the project and everything that went along with it, and then, we've expanded, I realized, and I came to realize, and it took me a while afterwards, that giving actually became love in action for me. It was my love practice every day that I was able to take what inherently just came from my heart. I put it into my hands and I gave it to the world with no expectation of anything in return. And so with all of these practices that you've given us, with worth and validation and self-care and gratitude, these are all gorgeous practices that we're now practicing love every day. And that changes. And as you said, it changes everything. It certainly changed who I am, how I show up in the world. In so many ways, it enabled me to feel that love coming through me all of the time. But most importantly, and I know Dr. Roshanak would tap into this as well, is when we practice anything. So let's say you go to the gym, you walk every day, you meditate every day. These practices, it takes 20 days, they say, everybody's heard that 21-day rule, to at least start changing the pathways in our brain, right? That we start to create a new pathway. And what we know about our brains, and Dr. Roshan should be talking about this, not me, I'm going to leave it to her in a minute, is we can start to create these new neural pathways in our brain that starts to create these new habits for ourselves. And then they say around 60 days, 66 days, depending on the person, you've now formulated this habit that becomes automatic. Well, imagine if everyone in our world started automatically practicing love in their own life every day, that love became an automatic. And Francesca, I'm going to ask you this question. Do you find for you this has become automated for you? Is it automatic that you start to practice love in all of these beautiful ways that you've shared with us in your own life?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And sometimes, if something is especially triggering, it might take me a moment.
Or 5 or till the next day. Yeah.
It's like I talk about one of the, I mentioned like taking a deep breath, and that's something that I do a lot. And so I always tell people, I'm like, deep breathing, it may not solve your problems, but it might solve your problems also. But at the very least, it puts you in a position where you're better equipped, right, to solve your problems. And so sometimes I'm like, I'm just like, one breath. I'm like, okay, good. Other times I'm like, it takes 10.
I was deep breathing earlier
Sometimes
today.
it takes me hours. Yeah. Sit yourself down, girlfriend.
Right. Like, so it's like, it takes but usually, yeah, I mean, I have so much more mental peace because I don't beat myself up the way that I used to. When I do find myself having like self-critical thoughts, I notice faster, and I'll be like, oh, there I go, beating myself up. Yeah, like we're not doing that right now. Like, and I just like, it's just my reset time, my pivot time is so much faster than it used to be. It used to take me months, and now it might take me 2 minutes.
and that isn't that the benefit, right? I mean, people have, I think, the misconception that once you get this, then you're done. But that's like, once you go to the gym, then you're done.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. It's not set it and forget it.
Exactly. But there is a very quick turnaround time, and it gets faster and faster, as well as there's, of course, some prevention, or at least it feels that way because of the practice. So on every level, there is a tremendous difference and a vast improvement. But that's not to say that we suddenly change from being normal human beings, right?
But we suffer less. Wouldn't we all agree?
Yes.
We internally suffer less. And I think that's what we're seeing in our world right now, is so much suffering. And I'm not talking about people that are in war or hungry or any of the basic needs that should be felt. But I think that mentally we suffer so much for our own selves. And these practices reduce that mental suffering for ourselves, which I love you said that. It creates more peace. That was Dr. Roshnak knows this, it was my intention for the new year this year was peace of mind, freedom from myself, and love, and more love, and expanded love, and more love. and I'm so happy we're sharing this with everyone, because that peace of mind just feels so free.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love it.
Don't
I
we all
love it.
need that?
We
Yeah.
sure
Right.
do. We sure do. And
Right.
that's why, because I do focus on romantic love, and I focus on working with single people, who are looking to, create that, co-create that true love relationship. There is a lot that comes up. There are so many opportunities to be triggered in dating.
Right.
Starting
But
with the
it's so great when you can see them.
like starting with even the thought of it, right? And so I'm always like, it's like, this is an inside job. Like, you cannot just go, whoo, I'm just going to go running into dating, and I'm not going to have any plan of how I'm going to take care of myself, of how mentally, spiritually, emotionally, how to prepare myself. It's too hard. If you just, look, some people it's not triggering. And so those people don't hire me. They don't need me. They're like, why is this hard? You just want to meet somebody? Go
I
meet
want
someone.
to be that
Good
person
for you, right?
Actually, they think they
I
don't
want to
need
meet
you.
that one person who's not triggered.
It wasn't like that for
relationship,
me.
No, everybody's triggered. Everybody's triggered because romantic love allows us the gift of going back to the childhood wounds, because it is so intimate. It bypasses so much of what we're able to wall off and protect and sort of manage, because it's not scratching at that deep wound.
Yes.
And so we all, in some way, shape, form, or another, are giving the gift of healing, or the opportunity for it anyway, when we get into that deep intimacy. So I would venture to say, Franny, that at some point or other, everybody needs a Franny to guide them through, because it can be very disorienting, and it can be
It's like a
painful, and
love
it can cause you to make bad decisions. Right?
It does. Yes, it does. And that's why I'm like, we gotta, this self-love thing, we can't just skip over it. It's not a nice to have, oh, wouldn't it be nice to feel better about myself? No.
No, but that person is going to make me feel better about myself. They're going to look at me and
Tell
feel
how we
better
are
when they
our
look.
own first true love.
Yes,
Ugh.
exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
and so
let's
when
talk
you can
about that.
accept that, and I know some people are like, but I don't want to have to work on myself. I don't want to have to love myself. I just want somebody else to love me. And I'm like, listen,
Feel
I
better.
please, like, I can only do what I can do, right? So everybody's on their own journey. And if you ever get to the point where you're like, maybe there's something to this, right? Maybe. And actually, one thing that I always I ask people, or I encourage people to do, is to like look at other people in your life, not in a judgmental way, but just as an opportunity to see like, oh yeah, I do see how, they really do shut down, or they really do have this wall up, and they really don't let people in, even though they think they do, right? And even though they're talking like, oh, I'm dating and it's not working, but you're like, oh, but your heart isn't open, right? And like just noticing that, be like, well, how do I do that, right? What's my version of that? Whether it's things that you want to emulate, or things that you notice that you're like, oh, maybe that person is not actually acting in alignment with the love that I know that they actually want to have in their life, right? And so if you can start to have that curiosity about your own self, again, compassionate curiosity, because if you're asking from a place of what's wrong with me, or why do I do this, or, if you're asking a shaming question, you will give yourself a shaming answer, right? You'll get that shame-filled, that energy will come through with whatever answer arises. And so if you ask from a compassionate place, grounded in this, I really want to grow in my ability to love, right? To be loving, to receive love, right? To be in this state of love, then it's really worth understanding and starting to experiment with practicing more of like, okay, let me look a little bit inward here. Let me start paying more attention. Wait, isn't that interesting that I said that to myself? I say that to myself a lot. How does that actually make me feel? Is that even true? Maybe it's not even true, and just starting to like, I'm always saying it's like a conversation with yourself, and people are like, I don't want to talk to myself, but you got to.
Right. Well, we have those two sides of ourselves, right? That, when you talk to yourself as love, and then you talk to your other side. And Dr. Ocean, I know you have another huge question coming up. And just before we skip over this.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? It's not the big question. It's a comment that's connected to what you were just saying, Franny. And that is there's the not opening up, and then there's the pushing away, because, and I love that you were talking about the shaming, because if you respond to everything as, oh my goodness, my shame is being seen, then you become defensive, and you will act in ways that will push people away. You will act in ways that will work against your objective to get love, to be loved, to enjoy love. And I think that's something that we haven't touched upon. I just thought that what you said very much connected to that.
That is amen. Print it, write it down, put it on a poster, put it in your book. Like, that is 100% true. Yes, absolutely. And actually, so when I started my love career, I started as a matchmaker, and I had this very, like everyone else, or most people, I had this very idealistic view of like, okay, I'm great at connecting people. I'm going to introduce everyone to their amazing partner. It's going to be, and then I had all these, like, I was so, I think about it now, and I'm like, oh my God, but it's good that I didn't know, because if I knew what I know now, I mean, now I'm 11 years into this. So now I'm like, okay, I've gotten the knowledge, but if I knew,
right,
like 11 years ago, like this, like, man, it's not this simple, I would have been like, oh, wait a second. But anyway, but yeah, with matchmaking, it's like this, I saw this because here are clients, and they're paying me their good money, and they are going on these dates, and I'm getting feedback, not just from my clients, but also from their dates. Right. And so I wouldn't like overvalue what one person would tell me. But if like you're going out with multiple people and they're all telling me, yeah, like, she's really defensive. Yeah, she was actually really rude to the waiter. Or, like, if I'm getting this consistent feedback, and I would tell people, I'd be like, okay, we got to talk about this. Right. And they'd be like, I'm not doing that. It's there. That's them. It's not me. And I'd be like, oh, wow, there's this whole blind spot situation that I need to help people. If I can't help people to like illuminate this blind spot, they're going to keep going through their life thinking that they're being open-hearted and doing everything they can to have the love that they want. And actually they're doing exactly what you said, Dr. Roshanak, which is that they are actually pushing people. They're either not letting people in to begin with, or they're letting them in a little bit and then push. Right. And so, yeah, but that's why we have to be kind to ourselves, right? Because you can't shame yourself into being more loving. It doesn't work that way. Those energies are not compatible, right? So if you're like, man, this feels hard for me, I don't know how to be more open right now. Like this, it feels really scary. It feels really challenging. I don't know what I'm doing to push people away. Am I pushing people away? It's just give yourself a break for that uncertainty, and just know the more that you practice this practice of really being kind to yourself, really caring for yourself, you'll start to get answers. Like you're going to start to get answers that make sense. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay. I never thought of that before. Wait, that is another way to look at it, So it's not always going to feel as challenging as it feels right now. And that's something that I always want to drive home to people, to just know that like growth is real, evolution is real, transformation is real, and it does not have to feel as hard as it does today. And it won't if you commit to allowing the power of love. You don't have to do it by yourself. That's the other thing. We don't have to do this on our own. We have this universal force that's so much greater than any one of us individually. And that is what we can tap into to heal ourselves and to then have these beautiful relationships with other people.
Oh my God, that's a whole other show, Francesca. Okay, I just can't skip over this one part, and I want to just come back to it, and it's going to we're going to run a little over time, but I think this one point is so important, and it's something I'm experiencing myself, and how, how these triggers. Okay, so let's talk about triggers for a minute, and because some people go, well, what does that mean? A trigger? Like some people don't even know what that means or how to be aware of it in yourself, what's being set off around you, how you're feeling emotionally dysregulated. Can you give us an example of a trigger, whether it's something in your own life? I can give you 100 in mine, but how we begin to get rid of, transmute, I don't know what, transform. How do we do that, Francesca? How do we begin to recognize these triggers? How do we see them in ourselves? Because it's not in the other person. We always, Dr. Roshanak and I are the greatest example of the mirror reflection of what we need to learn about each other. And we admit this, and we see it in each other. And, we work so closely together, and sometimes we set each other off. That's just the working relationship between people, right?
That's the beauty of it.
So no, and we both take the time to stand back and go, what do I need to see? Not in Roshanak. What do I need to see in myself that I need to learn from? But that's a hard place to get to, right? That takes time to begin to recognize that. Can you just talk to us a bit about that so that people can start to move past what's triggering them? Where do we get these from? And how do I get rid of them, for God's sakes, really?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I love this question. What I always say about triggers is like, a trigger is just a trigger if there's no bullet in the chamber, right? Like there needs to be a bullet in the chamber for it to actually register and for it to mean anything, right? So we have to understand that we all have our bullets in the chamber.
I've never heard that before. I think that's amazing. I love that.
That's really good. Thank you. And we're not always going to understand, well, where did this come from or why? And sometimes we can get stuck there, but that's another question, another discussion. So in terms of triggers, know that I'm actually a fan of people really knowing what triggers you in life, and like especially like a dating, easy place to to turn to. What triggers you? Do you get triggered? Some people get triggered just by the idea of putting their photo on a dating app. Some people get triggered when they go on a date and they are asked a certain question. Like, so you have to know, like, what do you have an automatic challenging, unpleasant response to? So I'll give you an example from my own life. This is not dating related, though I could give you lots of those too. But I used to notice, I'm from New York City originally, but I live in LA now. And I used to notice that I would get so angry in traffic. Like if somebody cut me off, if somebody was I would just get so angry. So I would just have this trigger. Like I wasn't like a road rager, like I'm going to chase you down, but I would get that angry. I'd be like, oh, if I was a different kind of person, man, would you be in trouble? Right? I would be like, I used to get so angry. And I realized one day, I'm like, my whole day can be derailed because somebody cut me off in traffic. Right. And then I'm like, wait a second. Doesn't seem, that person is not thinking about me. That person wasn't thinking about me when they cut me off either. That person, like, why am I letting, and so I had to start to have this curiosity of like, I know you know this one, both of you, because, this is the classic one, but like, if it's hysterical, it's historical, right? That saying. So I'm like, this is actually a hysterical reaction because I can't control it. And my emotions are out of control and I don't know what. So I'm like, okay, this is not about somebody cutting me off in traffic. And then I had to really ask myself, well, what is it about? And I realized eventually that it's about me feeling triggered when I feel like someone's like, I see you and I don't care. And what I want matters more than what you want.
I think that triggers a lot of people. Let's talk about it.
Right. And I realized, and I was like, that's what it literally, when somebody cuts me off in traffic, what's really happening? My feelings are hurt. I feel like you're
seen.
I feel like you're saying, I don't matter. You don't care. You don't see me. Like it's deep, right?
Right. But isn't that amazing that you, as simple as you being cut off in traffic? And I think that's the big missing component that everybody's missing, is that it is the simplest things as that. And you talked about what the universe gives you. Yeah. Great. Let's have a practice. The universe is going to give you somebody cutting you off again and again
and again and again and again. Yes.
Until you finally, your eyes opened up and you went, okay, what is this? Right.
Yeah.
And then back to that curiosity that you were talking about earlier. And
Yeah.
I love that because these are the whispers, right? These are the whispers the universe is giving to you going, okay, you don't feel right. What is it? No, it's not the car in front of you cutting you off. It has nothing to do with the car. Right? And that's the big component I really wanted people to get today is what are those little things in your world? Listen, maybe it's your husband leaving his socks, stinky socks in the middle of the living room. Well, it has nothing to do with the stinky socks in the living room. It's
I have
that
a
your
whole
dad,
category
when
of
you
things
were
under that.
little, right, used to yell at you all the time because you forgot to leave your stinky socks in the living room. And that was like your dad beating up on you. And now you're turning around and beating up on your husband, right? Like it's just,
Yeah.
so I love that you explain that because I think that's the biggest component that where we block love from our lives
I
because
agree.
we can't let it flow when we don't even recognize where we're getting stuck.
Yes.
It's
And
like
can
we've cut
I,
it off, right? The hose, we cut the hose off, right?
Yeah.
The love can't flow.
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
so let me connect the dots here that are connecting in my head, if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Incoming.
Here it comes.
Here it comes.
So, strap in, folks.
Yep.
So we all want to be considered. Everybody wants to be seen.
Right.
Everybody wants to be considered, and everybody should be considered. Not one more than the other, meaning someone is not to be considered objectively more than you. Nothing's 50-50 all the time. We can choose, I'm okay so that I can at this moment give a little more and shift the weight a bit more, or now I need more, so I have to shift the weight a bit more this way. All of these are true. Excuse me. All of these are true for all of us. So notwithstanding that, we all want to and need to be seen and considered. Going
Yes.
back to love being an inside job, that source of love within us, that allows us to see ourselves and consider ourselves so that we can have the capacity and the strategy to see and consider somebody else. Because if you can't forgive yourself, you're going to be unforgiving of others. And if you can't consider yourself, I'm not talking about being egocentric. I'm not talking about blindly just going, whatever it takes, I got to survive, I got to this, it's all for me. I'm not talking about blind greed. I'm not talking about any of that, because that's actually shooting yourself in the foot. We talked about that too. How do you keep yourself from getting your needs met? And one primal need that we have biologically, sociologically, spiritually, on every level is love. It is absolutely necessary. I can give you all kinds of data to back that up. So if we need love and we want our needs met, many behaviors that we exhibit prevent us from achieving that goal. And now we're spiraling and we're in chaos and it's just a mess. But if we were to start with that inside job and connect to the truth of love, of our true humanity, which is us just going out there trying to figure it out and have these experiences, but just considering ourselves as well as others, and others as well as ourselves. But let me tell you, the biggest shock of my life was many, many years ago when someone helped me to understand that I didn't have compassion for myself and that I wasn't considering myself. I'm like, what are you talking about? But it was true. I was given all kinds of love out because I wanted all kinds of love in. And it was always to try to get it from the outside in. I didn't even understand. Wasn't even on my radar that I needed to be compassionate with myself. And that is you being considerate of yourself, as opposed to you being like selfish and in a bad way and egoic and greedy and all those things. That's the balanced, beautiful, necessary self-attention, self-compassion, self-awareness, etc. So when we have that love that you were talking about, that is the source. It gives us everything else. so that we are okay and we allow others to be okay. And again, going back to giving us that anchor and that stability, where if another needs a little more consideration, if we can, and so we stay in a place where we see all the emotions, but we're not dysregulated by them. In other words, we're not hijacked by them. That gives us that opportunity so that we can all get that balance and move into that greater space of healing because we are seen.
So beautiful.
Right? Amen.
Yeah. So
Then it's a new,
beautiful.
like, why don't we teach this? Like, imagine if we learned this in kindergarten, right? Wow. Like everything would
relearn
be
it
different. Yeah.
in
We
high
need
school, college, and continuing
right?
education.
What if this was the greatest skill we were ever taught? Wouldn't
Yeah.
the world be a little different? Let's just say.
Let's just say.
But it was the
Okay.
love of a friend that taught me that. So we can,
Right. Yeah.
when we learn, we share. When we
Right.
love, we can be love, give love, receive. That flow, that bridge is created and that flow can occur, right?
And isn't that why we're here today, right? So
Yes.
exactly that we all get to
Give
learn
and
from
get love.
Francesca,
Give and get
right?
love.
And we all get to be that for the world. Francesca, I get to ask you the last question. We call it our get off our couch question. Mine's going to be a little different today. I got together with a bunch of friends and humanities team and a whole bunch of organizations. And we decided that for this week, over the week of Valentine's, we started this conversation off with, love is a $1 billion business. Forget $1 billion business. It's a $1 billion business. And tomorrow would be Valentine's Day, the biggest day of love on our planet, which we all go out and
More
we
than $1
spend way
billion
too much
just
money
for Valentine's Day
just for
alone.
one day, right?
Mhm.
And we create waste for our planet. We buy crap for our bodies that we don't need. We buy flowers that just die the next day. It just keeps going. And so we decided, me and my friends, we were going to create a campaign called All for Love with the simple purpose that over the course of the week of Valentine's this week, that we wanted to change and create a new algorithm for our world. And so that algorithm begins, we were talking about this with our phones, because this phone creates the algorithm so much in our lives because of the way we use it. What's Instagram telling you? What's Facebook telling you? What's YouTube telling you when you open it up? I've learned to program mine so that all that comes in on my feeds is what I know is going to feed my soul. And it's love and it's kindness and it's inspiration and empowerment, all of those things. But many people don't. And we know that our feeds and the algorithm that's created in our lives because of our phones now can be quite negative. And so that was our simple goal, is how do we help change that algorithm out there? And we're asking people to literally just kind of share a message of love with the world through your social feeds. So I am going to ask you today as our get off the couch moment, because you've already given us so many strategies and tools to go out and practice love in our life and create that from the inside out. If you were to give a message of love to the world, what would that message be?
It's you are worthy. I think that's the biggest one. It's just to know that there is a whole world, a lot of industries that depend on you not feeling good enough, honestly. Because when you are in a place of insecurity, you buy more things, you make decisions that are shorter term, right? You don't prioritize your self-care, you don't prioritize love, so there are a lot of factors that are really conspiring to keep us feeling unworthy of love. And I haven't even talked about the fairy tale industrial complex, but you guys watch my TED Talk about that. But, and read my book when it comes out next year. I
love it.
But I think just to, especially because Valentine's Day can be triggering for people, whether you're single or not, right? Because I know a lot of people in relationships who also are, because they're like, this is supposed to be this like amazing, romantic, most perfect day, and it's just a day, and I feel disappointed, and I got this, so it's really a setup. I mean, I'm not going to poo-poo a day that's ostensibly dedicated to love, totally. However, I'm not the biggest fan, and one of the reasons I'm not a big fan is because of how it makes so many people feel about themselves. And so for everyone who is struggling with Valentine's Day and struggling with feeling good enough, struggling with what it means about you that you're single and all of those things that are so normal, just to really for you to know that regardless of those feelings, nothing has changed the fundamental fact that you are worthy and that the love that you want is actually available to you, and it starts inside.
I am literally going to get your TED Talk. I'm going to put it in the comments. And if our back end team doesn't mind putting it as well across the
Looks like
board
they
for
did.
us,
Yeah,
that
we
would be
got it.
great. There it is. There we go. Here it comes.
I loved it. I watched it over and over. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, you're gonna get a repeat of this as well.
Yeah.
But we'd love to be able to share that with everybody. And Francesca, obviously, we just need to have you back when the book launches, because that's only going to get better and better. So we're so excited that that's coming through you, literally as a gift to the world. You know, somebody asked at the very beginning of this in the chat. They said, you know, does love have a light? And I think that we could say that if you're not quite sure, just look at Francesca and you'll see the beautiful light that's right there. And that's the most beautiful thing about love, is that when we start to view love through us, through the lens. Actually, I'm going to show you my lens of love. Sorry, this is going to be a little awkward, but I have to stand up for a minute. So I teach young children in schools about happiness, and obviously that ties into love as well, but I get them to put on their blue heart-shaped glasses that I give the kids. And you need to look at the world through the lens of love. And when you start to do that, then you know you are love, right? And so, Francesca, today we got to look at you. I know, isn't this great?
If I had known you were going to pull yours out, I would have had mine at the ready.
I have those same glasses, and I'm like,
I have them blue and in pink. So I have rose-colored glasses.
Of course you do. Of course
I'm like,
you do.
Where are they? Oh my god!
Oh my god! I have a whole little sitting on the mantle of my window right in front of me in my office. I have a whole mantle that's just filled with little love tokens and icons that I've collected from travels and trips, and this was the one that the kids, and I got to tell you, when you allow children to put these on their face and then you talk to them about looking out on the world through the lens of love, what comes out of them is absolutely incredible. And they all wore these for about a week after that at school. It was the coolest thing going on, that they got to, you know, look at the world differently, and we allowed them to do that. And so if you're not sure how to look at the world through the lens of love, go buy yourself. You can get these on Amazon. I'm not plugging them, but just for that moment of time that you get to do that. And then you will see love translated through your eyes in all the beautiful forms that are out there. And Francesca, thank you, because you did that for all of us today.
Oh,
I feel expanded. I'm so excited.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Jacqueline. Thank you, Dr. Rochanak. I'm so sad. Hold on. I'm sorry. I we all have to go, but
she's got to do it. I know, it's all right. She's going to do this.
She's got it.
It's going to be so good.
So while you look for it, I'm also going to thank you so much for joining us. Francesca Hogi, everybody, our esteemed guest today, our relationship coach, our love coach, our guide through this beautiful journey of the inside.
Here we go. Ready?
Of love.
We're going to do it.
And
there we go.
She is.
Okay.
I love it.
When you're done, I
cannot tell you how glad I am.
I'm so happy. I need you to take a picture. This is going to be your all for love moment today. Take a picture, send those to me, and we're going to post that up as part of our campaign. So I need a selfie with those glasses on for me today, please.
Oh,
that would be so good.
Wow. Thank you so much for joining us, Franny. How can people find you?
Oh my gosh.
Look for the link. You'll find her.
I love it. I'm very easy to find. I'm at Dear Franny everywhere. I have a podcast called Dear Franny. It's also my Instagram and all the places. But yeah, I'm just
look for Dear Franny.
Yeah. So easy to find. I made my life easier. I'm teaching some classes right now, and actually, if you go to dearfranny.com, you can learn about that. But just go, Instagram is a good place because, you know, link bio, it has links to everything.
And Franny is spelled Franny, everybody.
Yes, I just put it in the chat. Thank you
so much. Maybe our beautiful production team can throw that up for us. That would be fantastic.
And Dr.
So,
Roshanak,
dear
before
friend,
we go running out, I know we're over time. Can you
yes.
please talk about next week's show with Simran? Or would you like me to
So,
do that?
go right ahead. I was just wanting to finish my. There's the Dear
Oh, I'm sorry.
Franny. So you can go to at Dear Franny
There she is.
on different outlets, and you can look at dearfranny.com. And thank you so much, Francesca Hogi, for joining us. You have been extraordinary, and we can't wait to have you back. And thank you for bringing your light of love and the truth that heals us all to our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I have to run. This glasses
That's
moment,
okay.
Jacqueline,
Wasn't that
I'm living
perfect?
through this. You don't even know.
The magic, right? There's the whisper, everybody, right
Oh my
there.
gosh. And thank
We
you
are
to everyone
connected.
who joined live and those who are watching the replay. Appreciate you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. And do
Namaste.
join us next week as we continue with our Understanding Love series. We'll have Simran. I am Simran. Simran Singh, join us for Your Journey to Love. That'll be next week, February 20th. We'll be live and you can come in and do Q&A and make your comments. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And we hope to see you again next week. God bless. And stay
Namaste.
in love.
Mhm.